Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS urges employers to choose carefully when selecting a payroll service provider. Using a reputable firm or group can protect employers from fraud. Options include PSPs, RAs and CPEOs. IR 2020-186, August 19, 2020, Washington. The IRS reminded employers today to carefully choose their payroll service provider following continuing concerns that some disreputable organizations can fail to deposit employment taxes, leaving businesses vulnerable to unpaid bills. So obviously, when you're thinking about the payroll services, payroll can be quite complex. Payroll services have now become more of a specialization. In other words, payroll was often something that people looked towards just basically their accountant, their CPA firm to do, but it's kind of broken off as like a specialty area to some degree. So many small to mid-sized companies will then be hiring a payroll firm to basically do nothing but the payroll for them. As you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're hiring a reputable firm for many different reasons. Obviously, payroll is going to be dealing with sensitive information that you'll be dealing with. It can be complex, the payroll, especially as you grow. Payroll is going to be more complex of a system. It's changing now. It changes all the time, but it's going to be different from state to the Fed. State to state, you can have different kind of rules from state to state. And now the Fed is changing things, of course, with this coronavirus things in terms of the withholdings that are taking place and how to report those and credits related to the payroll taxes. So you don't really want to get messed up. You don't want to get messed up with the payroll taxes. You want to make sure that you are on top of that. And if you're not, then you want to get on top of that because that's just the best way to do it. Once it gets kind of messed up, it could be a mess to try to try to figure things out for it. So there are many good payroll tax firms out there. Just make sure that when you're picking one up that you're picking up a good one. So many employers outsource their payroll and related tax duties to third parties. This streamlines business operations by collecting and timely depositing payroll taxes on the employer's behalf and filing required payroll tax returns with the state and federal authorities. Quote, business doing everything else right can suddenly find its future in doubt if it falls victim to an unscrupulous third party that fails to make the required payroll and withholding deposits, end quote, said IRS Commissioner Chuck Rettig. And that really would be not good, because if basically what happens obviously with a payroll is the employer's required to take money out of the employee paycheck. So they get gross pay minus the withholdings, and then the employer is going to take that money and pay it to the IRS. Now, what happens when an employer is short on cash flow, or if you have a corrupt payroll department that you don't really know about? They might solve that problem by not giving the money that they took out of the employee wages as well as the employer portion of payroll and paying the payroll taxes, and that's doubly harmful to the employer, because what that looks like to the IRS then, and what it basically is you actually took the money from the employee. It's not like you just didn't pay the taxes that are owed by the employer at that point in time. The IRS sees it as basically stealing money from the employee because you owed the employee the gross pay, you kept part of it, and then you didn't give it to the IRS, which you're supposed to be doing not on your own behalf, but on the behalf of the employee. So it's something that you really you want to avoid that, because that's basically worse than just the company just not paying their part of the payroll tax or income tax. So this is a quote from the IRS Commissioner Chuck Rettig. Quote, we want to encourage all employers to understand their obligations and choose wisely when it comes to selecting trusted payroll service to carry out this critical function. This is especially important right now as businesses face unique challenges because of the pandemic, end quote. Though most of these businesses provide quality service, there are, unfortunately, some who do not have their clients' best interests at heart. Each year, a few of these third parties fail to remit the payroll taxes entrusted to them and close their doors abruptly. The damage hits their unsuspecting clients hard. So notice, anytime you're dealing with a firm, you typically want to hopefully be dealing with a firm that's been around for some amount of time. So, right, if you're dealing with a firm that is a new firm, then you're taking a risk. It might be worth taking a risk with them But note that the difference between a scam and a business is typically the scam's not going to be around for a while, right, for a long time. So if you're dealing with someone that's, you're putting your payroll trust into them and then they just close up and leave, then that's looks more like a scam or a business that didn't quite work. If you have a long-term interest and you're working with someone who is a payroll specialist that is has a long-time interest in the community and in payroll community in general, then that's going to be a much better fit. So, and there's a lot of there's some big payroll people out there. There's smaller firms that probably have more competitive rates, or localized firms. But again, as you go to the more localized areas, you want to make sure that you're picking up a reputable place. You might want to talk to your accountants about it as well if you're working with tax accountants and a CPA firm, to see what they suggest and give them the options that have been given to you, and let them see if they have any advice on it as an independent third party that's not actually doing the payroll. You might want to get an opinion, in other words, from somebody that you're not actually going to pay to do the service that they're telling you about, so that you have more of an independent kind of opinion. And if the CPA firm or the tax firm you're working with is not the same people that are going to be running your payroll, that might be the place to go. Pay them for a little bit of advice on the payroll, or ask them about it if they'd like to give you advice, or if they have recommendations for it. Back to the text. Quote, most third-party payroll services do a good job helping small businesses meet their deadlines and payroll obligations, end quote, said Eric Hilton, Commissioner, Small Business Self-Employment Division. Quote, but each year some employers fall prey to unsuspecting third parties that fail to send the IRS the taxes entrusted to them. We are vigilant in pursuing these third parties, but too often their clients, the employers, are left on the hook. The IRS wants all employers to take the necessary steps to protect themselves, end quote. Like employers who handle their own payroll duties, employers who outsource their function, there's a link to outsource this function here, are in most instances still legally responsible for any and all payroll taxes due. So this is the case with payroll taxes and federal and your income taxes too. And there's a tendency when you hire somebody to do the payroll taxes or the federal income taxes to think that basically they're responsible. People start actually talking to the tax professional as if they're the IRS, like, can't I do this? Like, and it's like, no, the tax professional is usually giving you advice on, about the law. It's not like they're the IRS, right? So the person that's actually signing the returns typically, and is still responsible for them, whether it be the income taxes or the payroll taxes, will be the customer, the company, not the tax professional per se. Not that they don't have a liability involved in it, but just note that the IRS is primarily going to go back to the person who signed off the tax return, is responsible for the tax payment, and that's going to be the company for payroll taxes, and the individual or company for the income taxes. So you're hiring someone to act as an agent, and you want to be able to trust the agent, because obviously the IRS is still going to typically hold you accountable for the taxes that have been done and paid or not paid, even though they were done by a paid professional. So back to the text. This includes any federal income tax withheld, as well as both the employer and employee shares of Social Security and Medicare taxes. This is true even if the employer forwards tax amounts to the third party to make the required deposit or payments. One third party arrangement that can reduce this risk is the Certified Professional Employer Organization, CPEO. Unlike other third parties, in most circumstances, the CPEO is solely liable for paying the customer's employment taxes, filing returns, and making deposits and payments for the taxes reported with regard to wages, other compensation it pays to its employers. More information on CPEOs can be found on irs.gov, and there's a link to that here as well. Other third parties, such as payroll services providers, PSPs, and reporting agents, RAs, may also be right for many employers. A reporting agent is a PSP that has informed IRS of its relationship with its clients via Form 8655 reporting agent authorization. There's a link to that here, which is signed by the client. A reporting agent is required to deposit its client's taxes via the electronic federal tax payment system. There's a link to that here, and is authorized to exchange information with the IRS on behalf of its clients, such as to resolve an issue. So in other words, you could see they're basically acting as, the agent here. They're acting as an agent of the company with you and between, you and the IRS with regards to making the payments and answering questions related to them. So you might want to look into that relationship more as well. Back to the text. For an overview of how the rules and obligations of PSPs, reporting agents, and CPEOs differ from one another, see third-party arrangement chart on irs.gov. Might be worth taking a look at that. There's a link to that here. Quote, employers should remember to watch out and do due diligence to help safeguard themselves and their employees from payroll service providers failing to do what the law requires, Rettig said. End quote, Rettig said. Quote, IRS criminal investigation is committed to investigating all tax criminals, especially professionals who have fiduciary responsibilities and violate the trust of their clients, end quote, said Don Fort, chief of IRS criminal investigation. Quote, those parties who do violate the trust may go to jail, but the defrauded employers' problems are just beginning. There is no substitute for continuing diligence in ensuring something so important is done right. Your employees are counting on you, end quote. So again, it is a whole lot easier to bring in a payroll service that you can trust, because if it does get kind of messed up, then it could take a while to straighten out, and that's not good. It's a mess. Back to the text. The IRS urges employers to take a number of steps to protect themselves from unscrupulous third parties. Enroll in the electronic federal tax payment system. There's a link to that here. And make sure the PSP or reporting agent uses EFTPS to make tax deposits. Available free from the Treasury Department, EFTPS gives employers safe and easy online access to their payment history when deposits are made under their employer identification number, enabling them to monitor whether the PSP or RA is properly carrying out its tax deposit responsibilities. It also gives them the option of making any missing deposits themselves, as well as paying other individual and business taxes electronically, either online or by phone. To enroll or for more information, call toll-free 800-555-4477 or visit, and you can see the link here, and there'll be a link to this in the description to the website. Reporting agents are required to deposit clients' taxes via EFTPS and, with limited exception, electronically file the tax return. They are also required to provide clients a written statement reminding the employer that it, not the reporting agent, is ultimately responsible for the timely filing of returns and payment of taxes. This statement must be provided upon entering into a contract with the employer and at least quarterly after that. See reporting agent's file. There's a link to that here on irs.gov for more information. Refrain from substituting the third party's address for the employer's address. Though employers allowed to make or agree to such a change, the IRS recommends that an employer continue to use its own address as the address on record with the tax agency. Doing so ensures that the employer will continue to receive bills, notices, and other account-related correspondence from the IRS. It also gives employers a way to monitor the third party and easily spot any improper diversions of funds. So you probably want to keep your own address so that you can at least, get the letters from the IRS and then scan them or forward them. It's another step in the process, of course, than just having the letters go to the third party, but that at least keeps you in the loop so that if there's any kind of funny thing going on, that's kind of like an internal control that you can have. So if anything funny goes on to the point of the IRS is asking questions, you'll get the letter first. You can ask your payroll department about it, or your third party payroll company about it. Contact the IRS about any bills or notices and do so as soon as possible. This is especially important if it involves a payment that the employer believes was made or should have been made by a third party. Call the number on the bill, write to the IRS office that sent the bill, contact the IRS Business Tax Hotline at 800-829-4933, or visit a local IRS office. See notices for past due taxes returns. There's a link to that here on irs.gov for more information. There'll be a link to this in the description.